Listen, Miami against Indiana, who had that in their bingo card? I don't think any of us. Miami's going to have to play virtually flawless in order to win. If they play the way they played the semifinal, they're going to lose the national championship game. Wait, how is he getting offers if he's not in the transfer portal? Isn't that tampering?
Touchdown. These fans are the best in the country. A day like today is why we love college football.
Hey, welcome into the program. This is the Joel Klatt Show. I am Joel Klatt, and this show is brought to you by Graduate by Hilton. We thank them for their support as always, and it is finally here, the national championship game, and so we are going to preview the entire game. I'm going to give you a in-depth look at when Indiana has the ball and Miami is on defense, and then vice versa when Miami has the ball and Indiana is on defense. It should be a great national championship game. I am thoroughly looking forward to it, and we'll break everything down, and then we'll get into some decisions that have been made as it relates to the NFL draft with some marquee players in college football. That's all coming up straight at you here on today's show. But first, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel, please go and do that. Then you'll know when all of our shows drop as the content rolls out and continues to roll out during the course of this offseason moving forward. Next week, we're going to have a show right here on the Joel Klatt Show of our way too early, if you will, top 10 for next college football season. So all that's coming up. And then if you haven't followed us on social media, you can do that wherever you like to social media at Joel Klatt Show. That would be awesome. Let's get into this thing because I really think this could be a fabulous game. Obviously, these two teams are playing great football, and we've seen that play out here during the course of the college football playoffs. Miami is the 10 seed. We didn't even know if this team was going to get into the college football playoff. They did, correctly so, and now made a terrific run, taking down Texas A&M on the road, taking down Ohio State, and then beating Ole Miss to arrive here and play for a national championship in their home stadium. And I can't wait to see the atmosphere as it relates to the Hurricane fans down there in Miami. Indiana, on the other hand, had lost more games than anybody in the history of college football. And then enter Curt Cignetti, and he said, "Google me, I win." Everybody scoffed at the guy and said, "Who is this guy? What do you mean Michigan sucks and Ohio State sucks as well?" Like, he's saying things before he ever coaches a game, and everyone's like, "What in the world? Who is this guy?" And when we Google him and we understand he wins, and he has won, and then now he has won at Indiana, and he is now 26-2 as a head coach for the Hoosiers. They are no longer the losingest program in all of college football history. Unfortunately, that now is a title owned by Northwestern. So now we get Miami and Indiana in what I can only expect to be a phenomenal game. Let's dive into this thing. And like I said, I wanted to take my time on each side of the ball so that you guys get a really thorough preview of what we're about to see on Monday night as Indiana and Miami tangle for the national championship. Let's start when Indiana and the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, has the ball. So we've talked about this at length during the course of the year, but you cannot say it enough. If you want to stop Indiana and be in the game, because remember, this is a team that's 15-0, going for 16-0, they would be the first team in college football history to do that. If you want to be close in this game and be within striking distance of the Hoosiers, you have to contain their running game, period, because this is first and foremost a running team. And I know that can be confusing, in particular when you've got the Heisman Trophy winner and Mendoza is playing at such an elite level. And let's face it, he's probably playing the best of any quarterback at this stage of a season since maybe Mac Jones and Joe Burrow in 2019 and 2020. He's really playing that elite level of football. He's got 8 touchdowns and 5 incompletions in his last games in the playoff. Like, that's insane. And so I think incorrectly, a lot of people just assume that this offense is about Mendoza and it's about throwing the football, but that is not the case. In fact, the numbers are staggering of what they've done on the ground, in particular here in the college football playoff. They have run the football 90 times to only 36 passing attempts. They have completely owned the line of scrimmage, and they have done a marvelous job running the football. Kalon Black, Roman Hemby, even Mendoza himself. They do a great job running the football. One of the things that they do best is that they run it at advantageous numbers. What am I trying to say? Well, when you've got 2 safeties back as a defense, then the offense can block everybody in the run front. Typically speaking, Indiana does a great job of dialing up plays where Mendoza has the option of throwing it or running it, whether it's an RPO or a check play at the line of scrimmage, and they're running the football at advantageous looks. That's one of the reasons why they are so productive running the ball. And so Miami is going to have to stop that. They're going to have to contain the running game, in particular on first and second down, because if you don't, Indiana gets themselves into advantageous third down and distances. Now, being in manageable down and distance on third down is really everything that Indiana is about offensively. It's what allows them to be so efficient. It's what allows them, in particular, Mendoza, to be so efficient. Now, Miami's also done a good job on third down in the last couple of games with their offense, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But this is really where this game boils down to when Indiana has the footballs. You've got to contain the run game and put Indiana into a position where they're throwing the football because they have to, not because they want to. And that's a very difficult thing to do. A very difficult thing to do. One of the things that I look at in this game is disguise, and in particular from Miami's defense and their safeties. Okay, so if you look at Miami's defense, they run single safety, whether it's cover one, a form of brackets, or cover three, basically a middle safety look about 60% of the time, just over 60% of the time. And they're very effective doing it. And that means that they're going to have that extra player down in order to stop the run. I would anticipate that Indiana, at least early in this game, and possibly on first down, would be throwing the football because they like to call plays, they like to check plays and get into looks where they're attacking the defense, where the defense is weakest. I look for them to be on the perimeter early in this game because of that look from Miami's defense in terms of that single safety, about 60%, like I said, single safety. From Miami's perspective, I think the question becomes, like, how many resources do you commit, do you have to commit in order to stop the run, contain the run, force Mendoza to be in third and long? That's a big question. Heatherman has done a great job, the defensive coordinator. He comes in, obviously it's a terrific hire by Mario Cristobal, and they run a very sound and simple structure of defense. It reminds me a lot of what Minnesota did when Heatherman was there. It reminds me in part, not exactly the schematics, but a little bit of what Iowa does. They don't run a ton of man coverage. There is a lot of zone, and they allow their defensive line to work, be active, and own the line of scrimmage. Well, when you've got Mesidor and Bain up front, you can do that. And those guys have been outstanding. In fact, nobody in college football has more sacks than Miami. And putting pressure on Mendoza is going to be paramount in this game. They weren't really able to do that against Ole Miss, partly because Ole Miss, offensively, they like to get the ball out quick. Chambliss did a nice job scrambling around, and they neutralized the pass rush. Another team that was able to neutralize the pass rush earlier this season was SMU. Again, mobile quarterback. And that was Jennings for SMU, and SMU ultimately won that game, partly because Miami didn't get a lot of pressure on Jennings. So how do we get pressure, if we're Miami, on Fernando Mendoza? This is a guy that gets the ball out quickly. He knows where to go with the ball, and he's playing at an elite level. That's a big question. Do we have to blitz? Can we win with our front four, with the defensive ends? There is one matchup that I think really favors Miami in this one, and that is either of those ends, but maybe more specifically Ruben Bain, against the tackle, Benson. I would load up against Khalil Benson. Now, he's not a bad player, but I do think he's the weakest part of the Indiana offensive line. He plays at right tackle. I would try to get Bain 15 to 20 rushes in passing situations against Khalil Benson. Now, a couple of keys here. One, get them into passing situations. There it goes back to containing the run game. If you can do that, now you can get into obvious passing situations and you can create a matchup that's advantageous for you. All right, that's obviously what Miami is going to try to do. And if they can win that matchup, now Mendoza is under pressure and maybe you can knock him off of his spot, because no one's been able to do that in the playoff. This guy is playing unbelievable football. 8 touchdowns and 5 incompletions in the playoffs. Like, I can't articulate well enough how good he is playing. Mendoza reminds me a lot of Michael Penix from a couple of years ago. I know Penix lost that championship game, but one of the things that Mendoza does so well is he throws the ball accurately. Now, you might be saying to yourself, like, yeah, Obviously, Joel, he's very efficient. Yeah, but it's more than just completions. It's where the ball arrives. It's the ball placement. If you watch Mendoza play, whether he's throwing the football down the field to Charlie Becker or on the outside to Surratt or over the middle to Cooper, what he generally does is he puts the ball on the correct side. And he allows his offensive player, in this case wide receivers, to play with leverage. He does this so well. It's exactly what Penix did a couple of years ago with Rome Odunze and those great wide receivers, Polk on the outside. It's the leverage that he throws. It's the ball placement that he uses that allows them to be so efficient throwing the ball down the field. Okay, so let's just say, sake of argument, Miami is able to control the running game, which I do think is going to be difficult because Indiana is one of the better rushing teams in the country, and they'll stay committed to it as evidence those 90 runs, 36 passes in the playoff. Okay, let's say you can contain the running game of Indiana. Here's the problem, is that Indiana has answers, and that answer is a quarterback that's playing better than anybody in Mendoza. He's throwing the football more efficiently, more accurately, better ball placement than anybody in America right now. That's just period. That's why he's going to be the first pick in the NFL draft. That's why he was the Heisman Trophy. And now he's got the ball in his hands with threats on the outside. Now you have to defend Elijah Surratt. You have to defend Omar Cooper, and you've got to defend Charlie Becker. Becker has become a real unsung hero of this Indiana offense. And if you look at every single game, in particular the big ones, since that Penn State game, the game that Gus and I called, Becker has made big catches down the field in every single one of those games. Obviously, he did against Penn State a few different times. He had that big third down catch against Ohio State. We saw it against Alabama for a touchdown. We saw it in the semifinal against Oregon. Like, Becker wins down the field. Surratt wins down the field. A 50-50 ball to Elijah Surratt is not 50-50. It's like 70-30. Combination of his ability in the air and the ball placement used by Fernando Mendoza. These are the issues that Miami is going to have to deal with when they're trying to defend this incredible offense. Again, it's going to have to be a defensive line-led effort. First stopping the run, then getting pressure on Mendoza, and then you can slow him down. One of the things that you look at in the games that Indiana struggled is that yards to go on third down were elevated. Against Ohio State, 6+ yards to go on third down as an average. Penn State, 7.5+ yards to go on third down. That's the key for this Miami defense. You cannot die a slow death. If they're in manageable situations, Indiana will succeed on offense. They have all year long, and they will continue to do so. So that's a huge task ahead of Miami. Just real quick, from a news and notes standpoint of this matchup, Miami is going to be without, at least for the first half, defensive back Xavier Lucas. He was thrown out for that targeting. I disagree with that targeting. I think it's a terrible. If you want to keep the penalty, that's fine. But ejecting a player and then he sits out the next half, it's the dumbest thing in college football, and we've got a lot of dumb things in college football. O.J. Frederick, he's been banged up, only played 5 snaps against Ole Miss. He got hurt against Ohio State. He's another corner. So we'll see how healthy they are. Mesidor was banged up. We'll see how healthy he is. They're going to need a full complement in order to stop this offense from Indiana. But that's a matchup that I can't wait for. In particular, Bain rushing the quarterback, trying to get pressure on Fernando Mendoza. What's up, Klatt Show fans? Every great idea deserves the power to bring it to life. Meet the all-new Dell XPS laptop. The perfect combination of style, power, and performance designed to elevate everything that you do. With its modern ultra-thin design, it's as stunning as it is functional. And the battery? It's built to last all day long, from that first sip of coffee to your evening wind down. The Infinity Edge display captivates with vibrant colors and crystal clear detail, pulling you into an immersive experience, whether you're working or you're streaming. And when it comes to performance, the XPS doesn't just keep up, it leads the way. Whether you're tackling your biggest projects or bringing your creative vision to life, it's built for editing photos, mixing tracks, and designing masterpieces. Powered by the Series 3 Intel Core Ultra processors, the XPS gives you the freedom to create without limits all day long. The Dell XPS proves there's no need to compromise. Style, power, and reliability come together in one expertly crafted machine. Check out the all-new Dell XPS at dell.com/XPS. All right, let's move over and talk about Miami with the football and Indiana on defense. Miami has done such a good job offensively and really transformed themselves I know that they've wanted to be a run-oriented team all season long, but they haven't run the football with great efficiency. It was up and down during the course of the season. But in the last few games, they have been sensational running the football. Mark Fletcher has been a revelation, the offensive line owning the line of scrimmage. That needs to continue. If you look at the way that they controlled the line of scrimmage against Ohio State, that's what ultimately won them the game. I think you could say similarly against Ole Miss. They really should have won that game by multiple possessions. They had the time of possession, the ball control, and they made some mistakes, dropped interceptions, penalties here and there, and that's what allowed Ole Miss to stay in that game. But their blueprint starts with Fletcher running the ball and letting that offensive line, which is a great offensive line. I think Miami has one of the better offensive lines in the entire sport. They're playing as such currently. That's a huge feather in their cap right now, and they're going to have to continue to do that in this matchup. If they're able to do that, then they do exactly what I just explained on the Indiana offensive side. Put Carson Beck into manageable third down positions. They've been so good on third down in the playoff, but the key has been running the ball. It's why Beck has been so efficient on third down, and he's been really good. He has been very good. If you look at what Miami has done offensively, they protect the passer as well as anybody. In fact, they're number one in college football protecting the passer as it relates to pressure rate allowed. Beck is thrown for 73%. A lot of their completions happen at or just behind the line of scrimmage, right around the line of scrimmage. Fletcher has been outstanding, 132 rush yards per game in the 3 playoff games, almost 7 yards per carry, so owning the game up front, and then getting the ball to Malachi Toney. This guy is unbelievable. I love watching Malachi Toney play. I hope he touches it 25 times because he's so exciting. He's one of those players you buy a ticket to go see. The ball touches his hand, you hold your breath every single time. I wish that heel would have come down inbounds on that one-handed catch against Ole Miss. I mean, it broke the internet as an incompletion, much less if his foot would have come down inbounds. Miami has been really good on third down because of the run game over the last 2 against Ohio State and Ole Miss. They were 18 of 33 on third down. That's 55%. That has to continue against this Indiana defense. It has to continue against this Indiana defense. Now, how do you combat that if you're Indiana? Well, here's the deal with Indiana's defense. This defense is outstanding. I think Ohio State was probably the best defense in college football, but you know what? Indiana is giving them a run for their money. Miami's a really good defense as well, but man, this Indiana defense is very good. They're very sound, and they're unique in their structures. Their defensive line gets after the quarterback. In fact, they're 3rd in college football in total sacks, so almost Miami's equal, not quite, but almost Miami's equal, partly because they are slippery. So much movement, twists, stunts, simulated pressures. Bryant Haynes, the defensive coordinator, does a marvelous job of confusing the offensive line and confusing the quarterback and getting the matchups necessary to put pressure on the quarterback. And they've done it against everybody. Everybody. They did it against Oregon. They did it against Ohio State when they played them. You know, Bama had troubles. And it's not always about the sacks that you get, but it's the amount of times that the quarterback has to pat the ball and wait around in the pocket. That's one of the things that I think is unique about Indiana's defense is there's not a lot of quick throws available. Oregon tried a quick throw right out of the gate, and Dante Moore had that thing picked off and taken back for 6 by D'Angelo Pons. So it's a unique structure, and you have to really understand and recognize what's going on the opposite side. That's why Beck is such a huge part of this game, and his experience is such a huge part of this game. It's no mistake that we continue to get experienced quarterbacks in this point in the season playing for championships. We've had it now for a couple of years, and we have it again this year. Beck is a guy, he's 37-5 in his career. He's played a ton of football. That's going to pay huge dividends against Indiana because his recognition, diagnosis of what's going on the defensive side, I think is going to be really important because of all the movement that Indiana gives you. Indiana is great stopping the run, and they're going to have to do that against Mark Fletcher. I think it's a fairly narrow path. Miami has to establish the line of scrimmage. They have to run the football because I don't think Beck is going to be able to get into a passing game against the Indiana secondary. No one's been able to do that. That's not a knock against Carson Beck and the passing game of Miami at all. It's just that no one's been able to do that. We thought Ohio State had an elite passing game, but that did not pan out against this Indiana team. We thought Alabama had an elite passing game, did not pan out against this Indiana team. We thought Oregon could be explosive and match up well. Dante Moore did not pan out against this Indiana team. So many times the opposing quarterback sits in the pocket and he's got nowhere to throw the football. Nowhere to throw the football. That's a huge piece of this game because unless Mark Fletcher is running the football well and they're in third down and manageable, then Beck's going to be sitting back there trying to throw the ball down the field, which they do not do very well. Remember, most of their passing game is at, behind, or just beyond the line of scrimmage. And he's going to be going against a secondary that is an elite secondary in terms of their discipline, their alignment, the way they match up to routes. That's a fascinating deal in this one. It's really difficult to get chunk throws over the top, and Beck really doesn't do that anyways. If you look at the playoff, he's 1 for 11 in throws that go 20 or more yards down the field. That completion was that Ole Miss, the big play against Ole Miss, which was basically a blown coverage. Indiana's going to be in zone. They're in zone 90% of the time. That's the most in the country. Simulated pressures. Can Beck understand and diagnose what he's seeing? That is a major, major part of this game. Indiana's ability to tackle in space. We saw it hurt Ole Miss with all of those little bubble screens, Malachi Toney on the edge. Indiana's got to tackle well in space. And if they do that, they're probably going to create some conflict for Miami. It's going to be difficult for Miami to move the football. It's what really hurt Ole Miss in that game. It just so happens Indiana is one of the best tackling teams in the country. In fact, they're in the top 5 in terms of fewest amount of missed tackles in college football. It's staggering to me. Every single number that you're like, hey, well-coached teams don't miss tackles. They don't get penalized. They don't turn the football over. They convert on third down. Indiana is like 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, every one of those categories. It's a fascinating, fascinating deal. So that's going to be a great matchup when Miami has the ball. If I'm Indiana, I'm getting everybody up near the line of scrimmage. I'm going to stop the run as best that I possibly can and force this game onto Carson Beck and hope that he has one of those Beck games where he turns it over a few times. And if he does that, Miami, I don't think they win if they lose the turnover margin. By the way, Indiana has not lost the turnover margin in any game this season, not one. They've been flat in a couple, but never lost a turnover margin. The college football national championship game is officially set with Indiana and Miami matching up in Miami. That's why I need to tell you about my special hookup from today's sponsor, SeatGeek. Everyone can use my code CLAT100 and get $100 off tickets on SeatGeek to the championship game, whether you're a new customer or not. SeatGeek rates on a scale of 1 to 10. So look for the green dots. Green means good. Red means bad. Keep looking. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. So no matter how many times you've bought tickets using SeatGeek before, code CLAT100 is going to get you $100 off your tickets. So if you want to go to the national championship, take out your phone right now, open the SeatGeek app, and add code CLAT100 to your account to help with those tickets. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's show. Let's get to the pick for this game. It is an 8.5 point spread right now in Miami's home stadium. Indiana is favored by 8.5. The reason they're favored by 8.5 is because this is such a narrow path to victory for Miami. Now, it wouldn't be an historic upset or anything along those lines, but it is a narrow path. And the reason is the soundness of Indiana. They don't have a weakness and they don't make mistakes. So the first thing Miami has to do, even to be in this game, they can't make mistakes. If they do, then it's going to wind up like Oregon in the semifinal where they turn the football over a couple of times. There's some short fields, and all of a sudden Indiana is winning in a rout because they will rout you. Again, like look at some of the games, look at the history of this season. Narrow path starts with playing mistake-free football. I believe that they have to win the rushing battle. They've got to win the rushing battle and run the ball well. They're going to have to contain the run on the opposite side. So basically, B+ in the rushing department against Indiana. They have to do that in order to win. They have to win the turnover margin. I think that they need, maybe not have to, but they need to be plus in the time of possession category. They've likely got to have a very few number of penalties. So again, all the mistake things, field position, but all of those things, Miami's going to have to be excellent just to be in this game. That gives you a chance against Indiana. And then you got to make plays at the end. Miami has a lot of things that they have to do well. The difficult part in this matchup for them is that Indiana has a lot of answers, both in their scheme and their preparation and in their players. Like, for instance, let's just say you take away their run game on offense, you still have Fernando Mendoza and 3 elite wide receivers on the outside. Let's say that you start to pop some runs with Mark Fletcher against that defense, they will change their schematics and they will immediately start to clamp down on that run game. The answers are something that I think gives a lot of people fits, and it also forces them to press a little bit. Indiana's the best coached team in the sport. Mario Cristobal is going to have his best game. Shannon Dawson's going to have his best game. This is where the rubber meets the road. Miami's going to have to play virtually flawless, I believe, in order to win. And can they do that? They've done that a couple of times. Against Ohio State, they were virtually flawless in that game. They got the defensive score. They did all the things right that they needed to do. Against Ole Miss, they allowed Ole Miss to be in the game. If they do that, if they play the way they played the semifinal, they're going to lose the national championship game. And Indiana is going to be your national champion. So what do we got? What do we got for a pick and a score? All right. After all that, I think you probably can hear and sense where I'm leaning in this. I think Indiana is too good. I think that their soundness is suffocating. Their ability and elite level talent is immense. Starts with their quarterback. They've got highly experienced players on the defensive side of the ball that have been in this system with Bryant Haynes going all the way back to JMU. Aiden Fisher, D'Angelo Pons, Mikhail Kamara. Like, these guys can play. They can play. I think Indiana wins this game 35-24. They cover the 8.5, and Cignetti completes the best turnaround that we've ever seen in college football history. And quite frankly, you couldn't write this in a movie script. He would be 27-2. He will have won a national championship at Indiana if, in fact, this pick is correct. So Indiana 35, Miami 24. I'm going to give the 8.5, and I'm going to take the Hoosiers to win the national championship. All right. We've got to get to a few news and notes as it relates to the draft. Some players have made decisions. Dante Moore, the big one, he decides to return to Oregon. This is a massive, massive get for the Ducks. I think it's a good decision to return to his team. You guys have heard me explain most quarterbacks that have Super Bowl level success in the National Football League typically have 30-plus starts in college. In fact, one of the least experienced quarterbacks to go on and win Super Bowls in this century is Tom Brady, and he started, I believe it was 27 games for Michigan. Dante has 20 career starts, and he's 20 years old. There's a lot to learn. He's a fabulous player. I think he is an immense talent, and now he's going to come back to Oregon, and I got to tell you, Oregon is going to be right back at the top of the preseason rankings for next year. With Moore coming back, they also get their entire defensive line to come back, their starting defensive line. They turned down the draft. So Amari Washington, Uyunglele, Tuioti, Bear Alexander, all of these guys are going to be back. They were young in the secondary. Most of those guys are coming back. So Oregon, and probably Indiana, maybe Ohio State, those will be your favorites in the Big Ten and certainly in the top 5 going into the preseason for next year. And Dante Moore is going to be on the top of a lot of Heisman lists with his ability and some of the explosiveness that he's got around him on that offense. Like I said, that's a big get for Oregon and Dan Lanning, and they should be very good again next year after just being in the semifinals this year. Other news, Ty Simpson makes the opposite decision, and he's going to turn down college, and he's going to go to the NFL, and he's going to be likely a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And by the way, with Moore's decision, this looks a little bit better for Ty Simpson because now I think he's unquestionably the second best quarterback in this draft to Fernando Mendoza, which means he's likely going to be a top 6 pick. Now, when you're a top 6 pick, you're talking about finances that even college and NIL can't hit, even though he apparently was offered massive dollars to stay in college, albeit to transfer by both Miami and Tennessee. He even admitted that the offer hovering around $6.5 million from Miami, which is wild. And listen, I feel like quarterbacks always need more experience. Having said that, I would have loved to see Ty Simpson go back to Alabama. I don't think he needs to transfer and just stay in school. He's a fabulous player, and he does NFL things on the field and makes NFL throws. There's no doubt about it. I hope he goes to some place that gives him the best possible chance to win and is a good fit. But it leads me to this next thing of like, wait, how is he getting offers if he's not in the transfer portal? Like, isn't that tampering? Come on. Like, it's just so blatant at this point. And by the way, I'm not just pointing at Miami and Tennessee. Like, yeah, he names them right there, so we know that they made offers toward him. But like, come on, folks. Like, don't we know that this is prevalent? Don't coaches complain about it all the time? And yet the coaches get together at the AFCA and they talk about rules changes and things that we can change in college football. And we don't get them to lock arms and say, hey, listen, we're going to try to tackle tampering, which we all hate. No. We don't get them tackling that. We get them changing a redshirt rule. What? What? I'm sorry, what? We didn't need a new redshirt rule. Now it's going to be you can play 9 games and still be a redshirt. Why not just make it you get 5 years to play? I don't understand this at all. Again, decision-making in college football is frustrating. They should have locked arms and tried to tackle things like the transfer portal and specifically tampering, which if they all go in there and try to make some rules and then abide by those rules, then college football would be in a better place. But they didn't. They fixed the redshirt rule, which I didn't even realize we needed to fix. Did we need to fix that? I guess so. Man. That was very strange. All right. Our next show will be recapping the national championship game. That's going to come out Tuesday morning. We'll record on Monday night right after that game and drop that on Tuesday morning. Then later in that week, we're going to have our way too early top 10 for next year in college football. Never too early to start thinking about next college football season. But again, recapping this title game on Tuesday. Hopefully that's a great game. Listen, Miami against Indiana. Who had that in their bingo card? I don't think any of us. Let's hope that the game lives up to the hype on Monday night. We'll be back with you on Tuesday morning. Until then, enjoy the game, everybody.